if you have kids and they're really big fans of Ratatouille and anyone can cook, you probably shouldn't let them watch this episode. Because while, yes, Remy, anyone can cook, anything can be cooked also. This is House of the Dragon, Season 3, Episode 3. So Rhaenyra is now in charge of Queen's Landing. I know it's still King's Landing, but let's be honest. It's Queen's Landing, yes, Queen. So Rhaenyra is sitting rightfully on her throne as the gods have dictated it. Unfortunately, she's not going to be able to convince the papal, the religious folk of this community to actually elevate her, because technically there is no body of Aegon. It is something that will plague her in this decision making, even though she plots with Alicent and agrees that, Aegon was horribly burned and would be unrecognizable and nobody knows, and we can always, you can always deny them and say that he's not actually Aegon, he's just a pretender and, be mysterious. Well, unfortunately, the Game of Thrones popes, they need a body to be properly disposed of before Rhaenyra can be elevated in the eyes of the church. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Well, the episode opens up with Daemon out there doing his Can I do my Daemon? Daemon, yes, kneel before Rhaenyra. It's a terrible Matt Smith impersonation, but he does kind of have. You would like to see that, wouldn't you? Yes. Why did you find out? And he meets with a Hightower, Ormond, or I don't know, something like that. Hightower, who has this little army with him, and he's like, well, I guess I have no choice because I have people that I have to think about, and I will bend the knee. Ah. So, then he has to get Darren, which is like the least Game of Thrones name I think we have in this universe. Hey, Darren, can you come over? So Darren is the younger brother to Aegon and Aemon, and he was sent away to Harmon for protection, and now they're handing over Darren to be captive in King's Landing out because he has a claim to the throne, and that can't happen. Rhaenyra. But Rhaenyra is also trying to do things differently. This is like such a great example of if people would just shut up and listen to Rhaenyra, everything would probably be great. Like she has the mentality and the temperament to be a far greater leader. And you see that in her like decision to not do certain things, like to not immediately and impulsively react to things like the killing of Darren. Like Darren, yeah, could make a vie for the throne, but she also sees a teenage boy, sees her half brother, and would rather just relegate him, but is a little pissed off that he won't talk to her. We'll get to that in a minute. Don't worry. So yeah, and we get some good jokes out of Damon. He's like, I could kill you now, and Ulf here would love to be, would love his own castle, wouldn't you, Ulf? Of course, Ulf would. That's his whole thing. So, then we cut back to the castle, and Rhaenyra's having a hard time doing things because there's no gold. The Master of Coin, who she killed, I guess had already split the coin up into different places. So now she has to try to figure out how to get it back and how to get coin from the, the highborns of the area, while also listening to the lowborns, because she has her first sort of open court where people come in and give her sort of a lay of the land of what things have been like for them in a certain regard. Of course, there's always the issue of the fact that sheep are needed, but not for the reasons that the humans would like them to be needed for, mainly for the dragons. And Rhaenyra now has more dragons than so. Yeah, that is one of the things. There are some other things about. She hears a story about how the highborns. I love the highborn, lowborn. Uh, when shit had hit the fan, they decided to go through and buy up all of the goods, so there was nothing left for anybody else. So they're in sort of a famine created, not necessarily because of. So Rhaenyra's got a plan for that too. Young lady who brought that up. Don't you worry. But in and around all of this, she keeps seeing all these rats everywhere, and it's brought up the fact that Aemon had all of the rat catchers hung while in King's Landing. So there's a fuckload of rats everywhere. And Alicent is hanging out with Helena, and so Rhaenyra has to address that, and they go over their concerns, and Alicent is like, well, you just beheaded my father, so that was, and she's like, well, where's Aegon? Where's Aemon? She's like, well, isn't Aemon gone from the city as I promised? I did not know. I was away with you. I did not know that Aegon was going to abscond the way that he did. So, they kind of are hoping still that Rhaenyra holds up on her end of the bargain, which she sort of does by saying that she'll give them like a maid to tend to them, and then also that they can still visit with their baby, just Jacaerys. Something like that. No, that's Jace's name. It's something like that though. It's a baby. It's hard for me to remember names of characters that don't speak. So speaking of characters that don't speak, I want to get to that at the end. There are two sort of great twists in this episode, and I want to save that for the end. So what else does Rhaenyra accomplish? She sits down with family at a meal, and with like Corlys, and who mentions to her that he has claimed Adam and Alan as his sons because otherwise he has no heirs, and he would like for Rhaenyra to also honor that claim and to declare them with the rightful name, which she's hesitant to do, and we find out later on she won't do because she feels like now is not the right time. I honestly don't get this part of it because I'm like, just fucking do it. You're Rhaenyra, like you're the queen. Who cares? So I think this is like way overthinking the issue, but she's like, he accuses her of like a double standard because she had bastard children and yet he always wanted people to take them legitimately, and meanwhile Corlys is asking for the same thing and Rhaenyra won't do it. And like Rhaenyra has one kid left that's being brought here, Joffrey. Well, she has another one, Beorla, but I don't know why she never thinks of Beorla as Beorla's out there like flying around. She's not in the episode, but they talk about her. They're like, oh, send Beorla out as a scout. But they're bringing Joffrey back so that Rhaenyra has an heir just in case shit happens. They also ask her if she wants to bring over her advisors from her previous, and she's like, no, they betrayed me. She's got the one lady, the one that her mistress whisperer is what she calls her. Can't think of the character's name, but the one that pisses off Daemon, just her sheer existence pisses off Daemon. There's nothing Daemon can do about it because Rhaenyra loves her. Because she stood by Rhaenyra. She was like the one person who had Rhaenyra's back and has smartly, and she gets to comment on it. And later on when they have scenes with like Rhaenyra's little council, she's in it. She's in the council and she's like, look at me, I'm lowborn and I'm here. So, it's possible. Like things So, um, she denies Corliss. We don't get to see the efforts in that because she also does Knight Adam. So he becomes Sir Adam of Hull, and hilariously, Ulf doesn't have a last name, but he realizes that he's like a Hightower, and he's like, I guess Hightower, and she's like, absolutely not. Pick a new name. And he's like, I don't know, White. So he becomes Ulf the White. Um, and Hugh, who didn't have a last name, was a blacksmith, so he becomes Hugh the Hammer. Hugh, Ulf doesn't really have his own scene, but Hugh does. Hugh asks Rhaenyra about the home that they were promised because I guess while he was gone doing the dragon thing, there was nothing left for his wife and daughter, so they fled. And she's like, "We'll go retrieve them, and we'll make sure to get you a house." And he's like, "But when?" And she's like, "You know what? I have a lot going on right now. I don't have the counsel that I need. Everyone's starving. There's no money. Like, it's not literally at the top of my priority, but I promise you I'm thinking about it." You know, that kind of thing. Like, you're right. It's not going to happen in this moment. Although he is Sir Hugh, so she could just be like, I don't know, take some soldiers and go commandeer house. Anyway, so why don't you go take your dragon and go find yourself a castle somewhere? Uh, so, poor Hugh, he just has to wait a little bit. Hugh's my favorite of the dragon riders, and the one that is, if he dies, is going to break my heart the most, because I liked him. I liked what he was doing. I liked the fact that he was not an asshole or anything like that. He wasn't pretentious ahead of his trial to become a dragon rider. He felt very much like an average guy, good father, providing for his family, you know. Ulf is the one who, like, if we lose a dragon rider from these three, I'm good with it being Ulf. So, um, is there anything else that happened in this episode? I don't think we touched base really with the other people. Like, Aemon is not seen in this episode. We never figured out what happened. She hears what happened, like that he stormed the castle and um, it was not found. Like, everybody else was found murdered. And Damon does ask. He's smart enough to ask. He's like, "What about there's a woman there who was sort of a maester, but not really?" And there was no mention. So obviously Alice took Aemon, which is unfortunate because it's like, dude, he just killed all of your people. So your hot take on that one should not have been, "Oh, I'll save him, and then he'll be beholden to me because I'm Alice." It's like, no, he burst in and burned everyone alive and then stabbed everybody. This is not a man who's going to look upon you and be like, "Alice, I love you. Thank you for saving me. Come be my queen." So, and Aegon and his guy are not featured in this episode either. Even Beorla is not here, and we don't check in on Rhaena and Sheep Stealer. That whole scene, that whole plot line for this episode is missing. But what we do have are two extraordinary sequences. One of them, which one do I do first? One of them is less extraordinary and more of just like an interesting twist, because of the way that it plays out. Darren Hightower with his blonde hair. At first, when Rhaenyra is trying to get him to talk, won't talk, and then Rhaenyra says, "We have your," when she's in with Alicent, says, "We have your son Darren," and Alicent, of course, wants to see him, so Alicent walks in the room, and that's not Darren. So her cousin Ormond, like, actually had some poor lowborn kid bleach his hair, threatening to kill his mom if he didn't pretend to be Darren all the way to the death if necessary. Um, but the jig is up when his own mom doesn't recognize him. So Allison's like, that's not Darren. And so he finally tells her what's up, and Rhaenyra can kind of see that the bleaching is starting to, and he's starting to show some roots. Anyway, so that means Darren is at Ormond's, and he has taken, because they find that a dragon keeper, because they had a dragon out there, that Ormond has taken over this castle. He has a new dragon. I guess because he has the real Darren, that he can teach Darren to become a dragon rider, because obviously only certain people can become dragon riders. But so it wouldn't matter if you had one if no one could ride it. I mean, you could kill it, I suppose, but anyway. So that's the problem. And she's like, "Oh, don't you worry, I'll burn them all." And he's like, "You'd burn all of your loyal, the regular citizens, the folk who need your defending? You would." And Rhaenyra's like, "Oh, well, never mind. Probably not. Yeah, shit. All right, we'll figure it out." So in the next episode, we're gonna have to figure out how Rhaenyra is gonna do this without just sending in some dragons to torch the whole place. Which is obviously what Armand planned, by, surrounding himself with hostages, essentially. So the cool thing that happened in this episode was, Rhaenyra's heard about how these lords and ladies of the land have all been hoarding food. She invites them to a banquet, which is kind of funny because she doesn't have enough money for her own coronation, and she doesn't have money really for anything. And like, a banquet, that's her hot take? She's gonna invite everybody in for a banquet, especially these people? Huh, let me think on that. And everything seems to be very cordial at the beginning, and then the feast is revealed, and Rhaenyra has made good on those rats. Because when they all lift up their plates, it reveals that everyone has a cooked rat served up to them. So, oh, and she's like, "What? This is what my people have had to eat since you stole all their food." Right now, as we sit at this table, I have guards going through all of your homes, taking all of the excess. And she's like, somebody like, "What would you have us do? Stop!" Like, whatever. So yeah, Rhaenyra is taking that food back and gonna hand it out. And she's like, "This will be a lesson. When I ask for a tribute, you give the tribute." And as she's about to leave, there's one guy that smirks at her, and she catches him, and she's like, what what's up? I forget what she says, but it's and he's like, "No, that was well played. Almost good enough that people might forget that it was your blockade that kept the bread from coming in." I don't know. Well, we could keep going back to, well, it was this person's problem that I wasn't in the seat to begin with, So anyway, I thought that would be an interesting hot take. Allison gives a little bit of, because Rhaenyra asked Allison, "Well, you were there. What was it like for you?" And she's like, "Well, you're going to end up making decisions that you would never want to make, that will, make you sick to your stomach, because there's no other choice. There are like no other choices but to make these." And Rhaenyra's like, "I refuse to lose myself." And I was kind of thinking in this moment, it would be nice to ask Allison to, like, if you could go back to that moment, would you say, like, would you declare that your sons were kings, knowing how this all lays out, knowing how everything happens, watching and seeing your children become kings? Would you have just let Rhaenyra, would you have let it stay that Rhaenyra was the last choice, or would you still have said it was Aegon? Because there's also a world in which it just becomes Rhaenyra. you know, and none of this bullshit happens, and her two egotistical sons don't do all of the nasty shit they had been doing, and everybody just kind of lives in peace. I see so much potential in Rhaenyra's leadership. I hope it works out for her for a little while. So, but audio description was excellent. Roy Samuelson did a lovely job. I actually paid attention to the opening credits, which described a lot of stuff. I noticed they added Jace's death to the opening credits, which is, that's a hot take. I mean, I guess if you, I guess I assume everybody is watching like linearly throughout the show. Nobody started on season 3, episode 3, and they'd be like, "Oh my god, Jace! Jace died!" Like if you missed an episode, and it's like, "Oh, well, that caught me up. Thanks." So yeah, I like House of the Dragon. I don't grade until the end. So that's my recap and my thoughts on House of the Dragon. I hope you're still enjoying it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next week for more Dragon.